Good morning, Year 9. I thought I would make you a quick screencast that will work well with the masterclass I'm going to run on comparative language. So before you watch this screencast, what I would advise is that you've been to part 1 on comparative language, all right? And that's a masterclass that Miss Mills is going to run, okay? So it's really important that before you watch this, that you go to part 1, all right, run by Miss Mills, and then you can either watch this and come to my masterclass, all right, on comparative language, or come to my masterclass and then watch this. I would suggest, though, trying to do all three, trying to make sure you go and attend Miss Mills's masterclass, and she's going to make you a screencast as well, so watch that, attend my masterclass, and watch this. That way, you'll be really well prepared, and of course, you can watch this screencast anytime, including from at home. So let's make a start. So you should already know, provided you've been to session 1, that the whole focus of a comparative text unit, all right, which is what we're doing here, we're comparing the song from Little Things, Big Things Grow to the text Stolen Girl, okay, is to find similarities and differences. So with Miss Mills, you will have completed a comparison chart, and you should have done 4 charts. So they were printed out on A4 paper, and they should have focused around each of these themes: Indigenous culture, justice, exploitation of Indigenous labour, and the stolen generation. So what I would like is if you could pause this and make sure you've got those in front of you. Make sure you've got your charts on similarities and differences in front of you. And if you struggled with this, or if you haven't completed it, maybe buddy up with somebody, all right? Maybe get in a group and complete this, or come and see Miss Mills or myself or another teacher, and we can give you a hand completing those similarities and differences. But it's really important, okay, that you have a crack at them. And if you're not too sure, maybe you could also go back to these slides, which I'll post on the Google Classroom, okay, and I'll try and post on our immersion website, and have a look at them, because that might give you a few clues. So what are you going to be assessed on? Because of course we know that this part is an assessment, so you'll get a grade from A to E. So remember, you've got your coursework, which is satisfactory or not satisfactory. You've got to do 2 of them, and then you've got your 2 assessments. One's your Dreamtime story, and one is this, you're using comparative language, okay? So what are you being assessed on? I thought I'd just better go over this, because of course we're doing this now for our immersion integrated curriculum, but comparative language will be studied in year 10 and then again in VCE. So that's really important that we get a grasp of it now. So the first thing is that you need to have a sophisticated understanding. So it means you need to know both your text really well. So you need to make sure that you've taken the time to read Stolen Girl more than once, okay? And we've put the hard copies of the book in the Year 9 building, and we've also got a digital copy on these slides, okay? So make sure you've read that book more than once and that you've completed the activities that go with it, okay, from that booklet that Miss Mills gave you. And then, of course, you should have talked with Miss Mills about ideas, issues, and themes. So what themes or what issues come up? So an example of this is that in Stolen Girl, the theme or the idea of the stolen generation comes up. And in Paul Kelly's song, From Little Things, Big Things Grow, one of the issues is Indigenous land rights. So you need to make sure that you can show that when you complete your written task, all right? The second part is significant connections, okay? What significant connections means is that you need to be able to show me how the texts relate to each other. How does Stolen Girl relate to From Little Things, Big Things Grow? So you could say that they both deal with loss. Both are texts, and we're going to call them texts because a song is still a text, okay? Look at loss for Indigenous people, okay? So you could compare that. You could say that they both look at specific Indigenous individuals. You've got the young girl in Stolen Girl. She doesn't have a name. She's just called She. And of course, you've got the man. His name has slipped my mind at the moment. From Little Things, Big Things Grow. So it's about their stories, okay? And it's about the story of Indigenous people at a whole, all right? And if you're still struggling with your significant connections, go back to the themes that we talked about here: Indigenous culture, justice, exploitation of Indigenous labour, and the stolen generation, because they're the things that these texts should have in common. So that's what you should have done with your similarities and differences, is tried to unpack them. All right. The second one's kind of similar, but what it asks for is a sustained and insightful comparison. So this is where we're getting down to actually writing something. So your aim is to actually write a paragraph, okay? At the end of this, if you've been successful, you will have written a paragraph on 2 of these themes. You can do more, you could do all 4, you could do 3, but you need to at least write 2 paragraphs on these themes, okay? And it's really important you do this because we're trying to make it a stepping stone. So this year I ask you to do 2. Next year you'll have to do a complete essay that's a comparison. And of course in year 11 and 12 you'll have to compare 2 books, okay? So it's really important you step up slowly. So I'm also want to talk to you about textual evidence. So looking at some of the samples that Mrs. Stanbrook kindly lent me from last year, I noticed that a lot of year 9s forgot to use textual evidence. You actually have to find quotes from the book, from Stolen Girl, and from the song, okay, to support what you're saying. And you'll see that at the end when I show you the examples I've done that I've clearly used textual evidence. And that's really important. Just like in a text response you have to have quotes, you have to have quotes in a comparative response. A comparative response is basically the same as a text response, except you're offering a comparison up. So the same rules apply. So it's still teal, so you still have to use your evidence. All right. Features of comparative analysis. All right. And the main things we're going to look at is structure. So using that teal structure because it's going to have extra E's in it. Okay. And then meta language. So meta language is the specific words that we're going to use to compare something. So similarly, differently, comparatively, all the words that are on the next slide, they're what we call meta language. So you guys forget about meta language, but meta language is the right kind of words that we use in a text response or a comparative response. And then the end one is that it's highly expressive, and fluent, so that it's a well-written piece. And of course, punctuation. Need I say any more? There are some of you out there who are still struggling with your punctuation. Please be conscious. And if punctuation is an issue for you, make friends with Grammarly. It'll help you heaps. All right. This slide is all about meta language. So when we're doing a comparative response, we need to have specific meta language because we're looking at similarities and differences. So we need different words because we can't always say a difference is, all right, so we have to find different words. So instead of just saying a difference is, you could say dissimilar to Stolen Girl, Paul Kelly suggests that blah. Or if you're saying that they're the same, so in the same way as Stolen Girl looks at the loss for Indigenous people, Paul Kelly's song From Little Things Big Things Grow also looks at the loss, all right. Or if you contrast, and you could say, although in Stolen Girl there seems to be very little hope at the end of the story as the girl has not yet returned home, in Paul Kelly's song there does seem to be hope as the sand pours through the hands, suggesting some sort of reconciliation, okay? So this is really important. I'd advise you to print this out and have it with you when you're writing your response. So let's look at structure. So I'm going to just pause for a second and I'm going to let you have a look at this. So what you should notice is that it's basically the same as a text response. It's basically an extended version of teal. So normally if it's a text response, it'll just be TEEL, all right? Topic, sentence, evidence, explain, link, all right? But here what we've got is we've got topic, sentence, all right, which needs to look at both texts. So it needs to look at Stolen Girl and From Little Things Big Things Grow. You got evidence explained, then you got to compare. All right, what have I said here? How can I compare this to what I'm going to say down here? So then you repeat evidence, which is your quote, and explain, okay? And then another linking sentence. And normally in a linking sentence, you connect back to the essay question overall, but we don't have an essay question here. So what your linking sentence needs to do is address the theme, okay? And I'm going to look at that on the next slide. So just be mindful that we're going to go text 1, Stolen Girl, text 2, From Little Things Big Things Grow, and that's how it's going to work in terms of your structure. All right, so I've put it up here again for you. You might like to print this out and stick it in your book or stick it up somewhere if you need to remember this. It is an important one because, like I said, you'll be expected to do it for the next few years of your schooling, okay? So topic, sentence, evidence, explain, comparison, evidence, explain, and then linking sentence, connect back to the theme idea. All right. whatever theme you are writing on. And I've tried to put them in different colors so that you can see here that this is about both, all right? So black means both, maroon means Stolen Girl, and blue means From Little Things Big Things Grow. So I hope that's clear. So I've done you a sample one here on the idea of justice, okay? So it's a lot to look at on your screen, so you might like to print it out. But this is a sample for justice, okay? So this is like what we did for my class at the start of the year with the castle. We did a couple of sample paragraphs in the form of a plan. But then remember, your plan's not enough, so you can't just rewrite this. It's not going to flow very well. So if you're going to do justice because you're thinking, hey, I really battle, I'm not really confident doing one totally on my own, but I heard Miss Sparrow explain justice in class and on the screencast, and you know, I think that's a good one for me, then just remember that you can't just retype each of these. You have to use your different sentences. You have to add something, okay? Because we're looking at each paragraph in particular being about 200 words. If you've done well, each paragraph's about 200 words. So you're going to have to extend on this, all right? This is just simple. So I'm going to try and explain it to you. So the first thing I want to note is that in my topic sentence, I've addressed both texts, okay? I've said that both authors seek to highlight abuse of Indigenous rights. So that's a fancy way of saying justice, okay? And it's both texts, Stolen Girl and From Little Things Big Things Grow. Be mindful that you want to put Stolen Girl and the title of your song in italics or underline them, okay? Evidence. So this is where I've got a quote, and I've even been nice enough to half embed the quote for you. I haven't fully embedded it because that's your job. What do I mean by embed? I mean that you can't just whack a quote into your essay. It needs to be a part of your sentence, all right? So I said throughout Stolen Girl, because we're talking about Stolen Girl first, the authors, there's more than one author for this book, reference the removal of children as they're taken to missions. And then the quote I've chosen that you can embed is, when am I going home? The young girl asks, and the response is, you ain't. All right, explain. What does this quote mean? How does it connect to the idea of justice? The experiences of the central narrator in Stolen Girl are designed to represent injustice, all right? Justice, injustice wrought upon Indigenous people, all right? Then I need to compare, and in this time I'm looking at similarities and differences. I'm saying although, so my meta language with although, From Little Things Big Things Grow also looks at injustice and loss. Unlike, more meta language, I'm now comparing, I'm looking at a difference. Stolen Girl, the song suggests that things are not only lost but gained, so that's a difference, all right? There's similarities, they both look at injustice and loss. The difference is that things are not only lost but gained, all right? This is what you need to work to, and that meta language in there is really important. It's what makes my sentence flow, all right? Evidence, I've used two quotes here. So my evidence of injustice and loss is working for nothing but rations, okay? And then my evidence of things being gained that I've suggested I'm going to talk about in my comparison is big things grow, and then I've explained what the implication is, that the community has become stronger. All right, then I've explained my quotes, all right, and I've been specific about who's being talked about. So we know that in Paul Kelly's song, we're talking about, the Gurundjeri lands and the Gurundjeri people, all right? And I've done my research here. I've Googled From Little Things Big Things Grow story, all right? You should too. Read the story, read the influence for the song, okay? It's about lands being taken by British pastoralists in the 1880s, all right? And abuse and working for nothing. Sorry, I skipped over. Go back with that. Highlighting the change the Gurundjeri people brought about, which resulted in the return of their land. And then my linking sentence here comes back to my theme of justice, all right? But also I've offered a comparison. That's a sophisticated thing to do, but it's great if you can. Go back to this slide. Sorry, I skipped over this before. All right. So my topic sentence, I'm being more specific here. I'm saying, when we're talking about exploitation of labour, Stolen Girl, because we don't have a name for the main character, so we can only say Stolen Girl or she. And Vincent Lingari, who is the character sung about in the song, are depicted as victims of exploitation and forced labour, all right? My evidence, all right? Stolen Girl, taken from all she loves and knows, red raw from the harsh soap, okay? Stolen Girl highlights the reality that many young girls are removed from their homes and then forced to work as domestics, a job which they were told to see as lucky. It wasn't that simple trying to find evidence of exploitation and forced labor here, because she doesn't actually go and work. But what does happen is she watches the other girls go off and be domestics, and she decides she doesn't want to be lucky. So it's important you're familiar with the text in this sense, okay? So that you can pull out those nuances. All right, here I'm doing a similarity. All right, so my meta language, similar to the dissatisfaction Stolen Girl experiences, is that of Vincent Lingari, who was forced into harsh labor. All right, the song states that Vincent and the Gurindjeri people were working for nothing but rations. Okay, there's my evidence of forced labor. All right, that they're working for nothing but rations, so it's not equal. All right, and then I said that working for nothing highlights the abuse and poor working conditions, so I've explained my quote again, all right? Both texts highlight negative examples of Indigenous exploitation in the form of unpaid labour. So at the very least, you're going to write me a paragraph on justice, and you're going to write me a paragraph on exploitation of Indigenous labour. Now, if you're thinking, okay, I've got this, you've given me a plan, Miss Sparrow, I think I can do this, I've done my 2, I'm on track with my other subjects and my classwork, I'm really enjoying this, I think it's an important skill, then you go on to number 3, which is Indigenous culture, okay? And then if you're feeling particularly brave, or you're thinking, hey, I've done the 3 that Miss Sparrow has put up as a plan, what else can I do? Then I've left one just for you to do. So you can do all of the themes. So I've covered Indigenous culture, exploitation of Indigenous labour, and justice. So that leaves for you, all right, the stolen generation. So you could have a crack, if you're feeling confident, at doing one on your own on the stolen generation. So using this structure, okay, have a go if you're feeling confident at writing on the stolen generation. So you've got 3 samples, all right? So now, compare and contrast. You may now complete part 3 of assessment 2, comparative short answer response. So remember, to complete part 3 and to complete assessment 2, all right, you need to do at least 2 paragraphs, and you also need to do the activities in the books and complete the task that Miss Mills has talked about in her masterclass. So please make sure that you attend Miss Mills's masterclass, that you listen to her screencast, that you attend my masterclass, and that you listen to my screencast. And I know it seems like a lot of work, maybe in comparison to other areas, but I promise you it will pay off for next year if you take the time to do this. Please email Miss Mills. She is cms@Snowdon-Nathalia, or myself, ss@Snowdon-Nathalia, if you have questions or queries or dramas or need us to explain something. All right, and then I've just put at the end of here everything that you've got, each of your steps, okay? Step 1, explore the 4 key themes, all right? Create a comparison chart for each, all right? And the chart's available on Simon if you've lost it. Step 2, write 2 comparative sentences, all right? That's pretty easy. Step 3, 2 themes, all right? Write 2 comparative paragraphs, all right? Super easy. 3 steps. Make sure you get them done, please. The screencast is here to help you, as are the masterclass. Thanks, Year 9.